He had one blanket. It was thin and patched, but it was his. It smelled of dust and old bread and the soft memory of his mother's hands. He folded it carefully each morning and kept it hidden under a loose board. He wrapped it around himself at night and dreamed small dreams. Then one night he gave that blanket away. The boy's name was Sardar. He was not yet old enough to fight, not old enough to hold a steady job, but he had learned how to survive. He knew which alleys had bread thrown out after noon. He knew which roofs collected rain in the wet season. He knew the faces of the people who would look away if he asked for work. He learned to move like a shadow and to keep his kindness quiet, like a secret prayer. The blanket was his last larger thing. It had been his mother's. She had sewn a tiny stitch into one corner, a knot of thread that looked like a star. When she died, Sardar kept that corner folded into his palm like a promise. The blanket kept out the cold and the fear. It kept him tied to the past. The colony was a thin string of houses pressed against the edge of a dead plain. Wind moved through the streets like a restless animal. Walls were patched with metal plates and faded signs. Children ran barefoot between piles of rust. Old men sold stories with their tea. The sky was a pale sheet, and at night the stars watched like quiet judges. On the night the ship fell, Sardar had been on his way home. The market lights were tired. Few people were out. He heard the sound before he saw the smoke, a slow, heavy groan like a great beast having a bad dream. The ground trembled under his feet. From the dark horizon a light burned and fell. It struck the plain with a wet boom and dust ran up like a buried thing waking. People came to look. They stood in a ring at the edge of the crater and spoke in low voices. A small craft lay broken in the clay. It was no miner's pod. It did not have the crude scars of scavenger ships. It shone in pieces, and a thin blue steam rose from a cracked seam. Sardar moved closer, careful, because curiosity in this place could mean trouble. He slid through the crowd and saw something small and strange curled among the smoking wreckage. It breathed a soft, thin noise that sounded almost like a whisper. Its skin had a shimmer, like glass that held the early morning. It had long fingers folded over its chest, and one of those fingers was badly burned. Someone shouted for the soldiers. Someone else muttered about danger. The older men said, "Report it. That is the law." The younger ones wanted to take it, to sell parts if it was a machine, or to show the creature for coin if it was alive. Fear made people sharp. It made them quick to protect themselves and slow to see mercy. Sardar looked at the thing on the ground and felt something pull at his chest. It was too small to be a threat. Its breath came in thin waves. Its eyes, when they opened, were not cruel. They were afraid. Sardar saw a small hand that trembled like a child's. He saw a wound that bled not in red but in a silver that steadied and slipped into the soil. He reached into his coat. His fingers touched the folded blanket. He had thought of trading it before. He had thought of selling it for a jar of oil or for a bag of bread. Many times he had lied to himself that it would be for food, for something practical. But he had never meant it. The blanket held his mother. It kept him warm. It was the last thing that bound him to a life that had any softness. Now the blanket felt heavy with choice. He could step back and wait for the soldiers. He could watch the crowd decide. He could keep his blanket and live another cold night. He could choose safety. But there was a small sound from the thing on the ground, a slow pull of breath, and in that sound Sardar heard a thin, patient plea for help. It was not a language he knew, but he understood the feeling, need. He knelt without thinking about how he would be seen. Dust rose and settled on his knees. He took the blanket out and folded it open. The crowd watched. Some made faces. A child in the back hid his eyes, not sure whether to be brave or embarrassed. The soldiers shifted their weight and kept their hands near belts they could not yet use. Sardar wrapped the blanket around the small creature like a careful seamstress. The fabric touched the warm skin and trembled. He tucked the star-stitched corner near its shoulder, as if to offer protection from memory as well as cold. The creature's breathing slowed. Its glass-like skin seemed to quiet. For a moment the night held its breath too. A rustle moved through the circle of people. Some whispered about fools and softness. Some whispered about a sign. One man, older than the rest, said nothing. He watched the blanket as if it might be a map. The ship's blue steam sighed and the plane smelled of hot metal. When Sardar stood, his hands were empty for the first time in years. The blanket was no longer his. He felt lighter and heavier at once. He had given away warmth and memory. He had given away his last luxury. He had chosen the small life of one creature over the safe life of his own things. He did not know then what the act would bring. He did not know that the sound of the ship would send a message farther than the plane could hold. He did not know that the stitched corner of the blanket would catch in the wind and become a small flag of something new. He could not see the shapes moving beyond the horizon, eyes like polished stone, ships like the ribs of sleeping whales. He could not know that by dawn the edge of his world would be marked by 200 figures who walked with the slow discipline of those who mean to be heard. For now, there was only the small, quiet miracle of a breath that came easier. For now, Sardar watched the creature curl and rest under the thin fabric. A child moved closer and dared to stroke the small hand. The older man finally spoke. He said only, "We will see what comes of this." His voice held no judgment, only the old tired hope that whatever came would not be worse than the night. Sardar folded his empty hands into his sleeves and waited. The sky above the colony was thin and bright with a pale star. Somewhere beyond the plain, something larger stirred. The blanket lay warm on the small body and a new kind of story began to thread through the town, a story that would ask the people who they were when fear knocked at the door. Morning came slow to Tarsus 9. The sun was pale, not bright, and it made the streets look older than they already were. People rose early, carrying empty buckets, looking for water. Smoke drifted from broken chimneys. Dogs barked in the distance, chasing after scraps. The colony looked the same as it always did, but the air felt different. Something had changed. Sardar woke without his blanket. The chill bit his skin, and he curled into himself to fight it. He had not slept well. His mind had been busy all night, chasing the memory of the alien's trembling breath. He saw again the way the creature's chest had steadied once the blanket wrapped around it. The sound haunted him, soft but stubborn, like a heartbeat refusing to end. When he left his corner and walked into the market, the people were already talking. They spoke in half-whispers, but the words spread quickly. They say he gave it his only blanket. Madness. Doesn't he know what that thing could bring? Maybe it will bring death. Or maybe it will bring luck. You don't know. The words followed him, heavy like stones tied to his back. Sardar kept his eyes down. He was used to whispers. People often spoke about the homeless boy who lived on scraps. But today the whispers felt sharper. Today, they weren't just about him. They were about what he had done. Near the crater, the crowd was still thick. The alien Leah, as some soldiers had guessed from broken signals, was alive. Its breathing had grown steadier. Wrapped in Sardar's blanket, it almost looked asleep. Two soldiers stood nearby, their rifles resting on their shoulders but not raised. They didn't know whether to protect the creature or guard the people from it. The older man from the night before stood at the front, watching. His name was Urin, a retired miner with scars on his hands. He had seen wars, floods, and famines. He knew the weight of choices. When he saw Sardar, he nodded once, as if to say, "The story is yours now, whether you want it or not." Some children had crept closer. They threw pebbles, small ones, not to hurt but to test. One pebble touched the blanket and slid away. Leah stirred, and the children ran back laughing, but their laughter had fear hidden inside. An old woman crossed her arms and muttered, "This is trouble. Aliens bring armies. Armies bring fire. The boy should not have touched it." Another voice, a younger one, answered, "And what if he saved something precious? What if this is a chance? Are we always to live in fear?" The crowd grew restless. The air filled with questions no one could answer. Was the alien a spy? Was it a lost child of a greater empire? Would more ships follow? And if they did, would they come with gifts or with guns? Sardar stood silent, watching. He felt the cold on his arms where the blanket used to be. He remembered his mother's voice, telling him that kindness was never wasted, even if it was unseen. But in that moment, he wondered if he had done something foolish. A soldier approached him. His armor was dented, his helmet hanging at his side. His eyes were sharp, but not cruel. He asked, "Why did you do it?" Sardar swallowed. His throat was dry. He wanted to say many things, that he could not watch something die, that the blanket was worth less than a life, that fear was already too common in the colony. But the words stuck. Instead, he whispered, "Because it was the right thing." The soldier studied him, then nodded slowly. He did not argue. He simply returned to his post. By midday, rumors had reached every corner of the colony. Some said the alien had spoken in dreams. Some said its body carried treasure under the skin. Some said it was a weapon, placed to trick them. None of these things were true, but truth did not matter. Fear and hope were stronger than fact. At the well, two women nearly fought over it. One shouted that Sardar had cursed them all. The other shouted back that he had saved them. The well keeper had to step between them, his voice rough as he warned them to stop. Even the children repeated the rumors, their voices carrying the weight of their parents' fears. Some mocked Sardar, calling him alien's pet. Others looked at him with wide eyes, as if he had touched something holy. By evening, the soldiers built a small tent near the crater. They did not move Leah inside, instead, they let it rest beneath the blanket, lying on a bed of grass brought from the fields. The creature's breathing grew stronger. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, a faint hum came from its chest, a sound not of pain, but of healing. Yorin, the old miner, sat beside Sardar on a stone wall. The sun was low, painting the horizon in gold. He did not look at the boy when he spoke. "You know what you've done?" Sardar shook his head. "You've lit a signal. Not with fire, but with mercy. And mercy travels farther than fire, boy. It calls to those who remember it." Sardar looked down at his hands. They were empty, colder than before. "Do you think I made a mistake?" Yorin finally turned, his scarred face lined with shadows. "Mistake or miracle, sometimes they start the same way." The night came again, and with it silence. But beyond the silence, something moved. Far beyond the plain, shapes gathered under the stars. Ships shifted like sleeping animals. Armor shone under pale moons. And 200 pairs of eyes opened in unison, following the echo of a single small act of kindness. The colony did not know it yet, but dawn would not come alone. It would arrive with an army. An army that had felt the weight of a boy's choice. And in the center of it all was Sardar, who had given away a blanket and found himself holding the attention of a galaxy. The second night was colder than the first. Without his blanket, Sardar shivered under the open sky. He pulled his thin coat tight, but the wind cut through him like glass. He thought about sneaking near the soldiers' fire, but he knew they would send him away. So he stayed in the shadows, arms folded, teeth biting against the chill. Across the square, the alien lay wrapped in his blanket. The tent glowed with a faint light, like a lantern behind thin cloth. Soldiers stood watch, their boots stamping the dirt every few minutes. Sardar could see the rise and fall of the alien's chest. Each breath reminded him of what he had given up. He tried to sleep. He could not. Every sound in the night pressed into his ears: the rattle of metal, the mutter of men, the cough of the wind. He stared at the stars, sharp and cold, and wondered if they watched him the way he watched them. He thought of his mother. He thought of the knot of thread in the blanket's corner. It was no longer his. Now it belonged to something strange and fragile. When morning came, Sardar's body ached. His stomach was hollow. He walked to the market and begged for work. Some gave him scraps, others only looks. One baker's wife dropped a piece of bread into his hands, saying nothing. He ate it slowly, saving each bite, even as the whispers followed him again. By midday, the soldiers moved aside to let the healer in. The healer was a quiet woman named Miri, with gentle hands and sharp eyes. She studied the alien carefully, listening to its hum, touching the blanket as if it were sacred. She asked for water, herbs, and warmth. The people gave what they could, though some gave grudgingly. Sardar stood at the edge of the crowd, watching. His feet itched to step forward, but he did not dare. Until the alien opened its eyes. They were large, glowing faintly, the color of dawn light caught in water. They blinked slowly, adjusting to the air and faces. Then, without warning, they fixed on Sardar. He froze. His breath stopped. He felt every gaze turn toward him, as if the alien's look had pointed an invisible finger. The creature lifted a hand, weak but deliberate, and reached toward him. Gasps ran through the crowd. Someone muttered, "It remembers him." The soldier nearest Sardar pushed him gently forward. "Go on," he said. "It wants you." Sardar's heart thumped in his chest. He stepped closer, each movement slow, as if the ground might break beneath him. When he reached the tent, the alien's hand touched his sleeve. Its skin was warm, softer than it looked. For a moment, Sardar forgot the crowd, the soldiers, the whispers. There was only the two of them, boy and stranger, human, and something more. The alien made a sound. Not words, but a tone. It was low and musical, a note that seemed to tremble in Sardar's bones. He didn't understand it, but he felt it: gratitude, fragile and honest. Sardar swallowed. He wanted to speak back, but what could he say? Finally, he whispered, "You're safe." The healer watched with wide eyes. "It listens to him," she said softly. "Only him." From that day, Sardar visited the tent each morning. The soldiers did not stop him. The healer even asked for his help bringing water, holding herbs, speaking gently so the alien could rest. Each time, Leah, as the soldiers now called her, seemed calmer in his presence. Sometimes she would hum soft notes, and Sardar would answer with simple words, as if they could build a bridge from sound alone. Other times, she would trace shapes in the dirt with her long fingers: circles, stars, paths. Sardar would copy them with his own hand. He did not know their meaning, but when he looked up, her glowing eyes held something like approval. At night, he returned to his corner without a blanket. Yet strangely, he did not feel as cold. A warmth followed him, faint but real, as if her humming still echoed in his bones. The colony noticed. Whispers changed tone. Some said, "The boy has tamed it." Others said, "The alien trusts him. Perhaps this is a gift." A few still spat curses, calling him fool or traitor. But the fear was no longer whole. Curiosity had cracked it open. One evening, Sardar brought Leah a dandelion he had found near the well. It was small, thin, its seeds white and fragile. He held it out awkwardly, not knowing why. She took it gently. For a moment, she studied it, then blew softly. The seeds lifted, drifting like silver sparks in the tense light. A soft hum rose from her chest, brighter than before, and the air seemed to glow faintly as the seeds floated. The crowd gasped. Children clapped. Even the soldiers smiled. Sardar stared, wide-eyed. He had never seen something so simple turn into something so beautiful. For the first time in years, he laughed. A short, surprised sound that slipped out without permission. Leah's eyes widened, and then she made a sound too, something like an echo of his laugh, soft and strange but warm. From that moment, something invisible tied them together. Not long after, rumors reached the colony again. Travelers spoke of shapes moving beyond the horizon. Shadows in the night sky. Lights like watchful stars that did not fade. The whispers grew heavier. An army, they said. It is coming. But when Sardar looked at Leah, wrapped still in his blanket, humming softly as if to comfort him, he did not feel fear. He felt only that something larger was drawing near, not to destroy, but to answer. And he wondered, as he lay down to sleep that night without warmth, if kindness truly could carry across the stars. The night was restless. No one slept well in the colony. Rumors had moved faster than the wind. Some said they saw strange lights flickering along the plain. Others swore they heard drums, deep and steady, rolling through the ground. Mothers kept their children close. Men carried tools to bed, sharp edges within reach. Even the dogs did not bark, they only growled, low and uneasy. Sardar lay curled in his corner. He had no blanket, only his thin coat and the memory of warmth. His eyes stayed open long after the moon passed overhead. He thought of the alien, Leah, resting in the tent, humming softly when she dreamed. He thought of the dandelion seeds that had glowed as they rose into the night. He thought of his mother's words, kindness is never wasted. But still, he could not shake the feeling that something was moving closer. Something large. Something waiting. Just before dawn, the ground began to tremble. At first it was faint, like distant thunder. Then it grew stronger. Dishes rattled on shelves. Dust fell from walls. People stumbled out of their homes, their faces pale and fearful. They looked to the horizon, and there they saw it. At the edge of the plain, a black line stretched across the land. It was not a shadow. It was a formation. 200 figures marched together, their armor catching the first light of morning. Each step landed as one, shaking the ground like a giant's heartbeat. The colony gasped. Some ran to lock doors. Others fell to their knees. The soldiers rushed to gather near the crater, rifles raised, eyes wide. They had seen armies before, but never like this. The figures drew closer. Their armor gleamed like polished stone, marked with symbols that glowed faintly blue. Their helmets curved high, their shoulders broad. Weapons were strapped across their backs, but none were drawn. They marched with purpose, with silence, with a discipline that chilled the watching crowd. At their head walked a single leader. Taller than the rest, wearing a crest that shone like fire. Every step he took seemed measured, as if the earth itself adjusted for him. His eyes glowed faintly behind his visor, sharp and unreadable. Sardar stood among the crowd, his stomach twisting. He could not breathe. He could not speak. His heart told him this was the answer to his gift, but his body felt only fear. The legion stopped at the edge of the colony. 200 warriors stood still, forming a wall of steel and silence. Not one moved. Not one spoke. The only sound was the faint hiss of morning wind, carrying dust across the gap between them and the humans. Then, slowly, the leader stepped forward. His armor made no noise, yet the weight of his presence pressed on every chest. He walked past the soldiers, past the whispers, until he stood before the tent where Leah rested. The soldiers aimed their rifles. The crowd held its breath. The leader raised a single hand. At once, the legion behind him dropped to one knee, their fists pressed against the ground. The plain shook with the motion, as if the earth itself bowed. Gasps broke from the humans. Some thought it was a trick. Others thought it was surrender. No one knew for certain. The leader lowered his hand and spoke. His voice was deep, layered, as if more than one voice spoke at once. The words were strange, but Leah stirred. She sat up weakly in the tent, the blanket slipping from her shoulders, and she answered in the same tongue. The leader turned his glowing eyes toward Sardar. Everyone followed the gaze. Suddenly, all attention was on the boy with no blanket, the boy who had given his last comfort to a dying stranger. Sardar's throat went dry. His legs felt heavy. But when the leader gestured, he stepped forward. One slow step, then another, until he stood just a few paces away. The leader spoke again, and this time Leah's voice echoed the meaning. Weak but clear, she translated. You gave what was yours. Why? Sardar swallowed. His mind screamed with fear. But he remembered the small hand trembling, the way the blanket had steadied her breath, the way kindness had once steadied his own. His voice came quiet but steady. Because she was dying. Because no one should die cold and alone. Because it was the right thing. Silence fell heavy. The leader studied him for a long moment. His gaze was sharp, as if measuring the truth inside Sardar's bones. Then, slowly, he nodded. He raised his hand again, and the legion rose to their feet in unison. The sound of 200 warriors standing was like the opening of a great door. The leader spoke once more. Leah's weak voice translated. This boy's kindness has reached farther than fear. We will not bring war. We will bring protection. The one who gave without asking will be remembered. The colony exhaled all at once, relief and awe mixed with disbelief. Soldiers lowered their rifles. Mothers held their children tighter, but this time in wonder, not terror. Sardar stood frozen. He could hardly believe what he heard. His blanket, his small, ragged blanket, had called an army to his side. And yet, deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The dawn had come. And with it, a legion. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows over the plain. The 200 alien warriors stood silent, their armor shining like mirrors of stone. The colony had never seen such power gathered in one place. Fear still lingered, but so did something else, something new. Whispers spread quickly. They came for us. No, they came for her. What if they attack when night falls? Maybe they're here to take the boy. No one agreed. Fear turned neighbor against neighbor. Some wanted to run. Others wanted to bow. A few wanted to fight, though their trembling hands betrayed them. In the middle of it all, Sardar stood frozen. The leader's eyes had already moved past him, but the boy still felt their weight pressing against his chest. He had never been noticed before, not like this. Now it seemed the whole world watched him. Beside the boy, Captain Rourke, the grizzled commander of the colony's defenses, spat into the dust. His hand never left the grip of his rifle. I don't like it, he muttered. No army marches without a reason. The alien leader remained still. His soldiers did not flinch, did not blink, as if carved from stone. At last, Leah stepped forward, weak but determined, her voice breaking the silence. These are my people, she said, swaying slightly on her feet. They came because of the signal. What signal? Captain Rourke demanded, his voice sharp. The blanket, she answered softly, looking at Sardar. The act of mercy lit the sky. Our scouts saw it. They brought word. My father sent the legion. Gasps rippled through the humans. They looked at the boy with new eyes. Some with awe, others with suspicion. Captain Rourke frowned. You mean to tell me, one ragged cloth brought this down on us? He pointed to the armored wall of soldiers. Leah nodded. Mercy carries farther than fear. My people believe this. The captain shook his head, but before he could argue further, the alien leader lifted his hand again. Leah pressed her palm to her chest and translated. He says, your colony is fragile. Others will come. Enemies. Raiders. This boy's gift calls us to guard you. But trust must be earned on both sides. The words struck like iron. The humans shifted uneasily. Some whispered about protection. Others whispered about chains. A woman from the crowd shouted, we don't need them. Another answered, better them than raiders tearing down our walls. Voices clashed. Fear fought with hope in every heart. Sardar felt the storm growing around him. He wanted to speak, but his throat was dry. Then he felt a hand slip into his small, weak, but steady. Leah's fingers closed around his. She gave him a faint smile. He swallowed and stepped forward. Please, Sardar said, his voice louder than he expected. We are only people. We are cold and hungry and afraid. We fight each other when we should stand together. But when I saw her, he looked at Leah, I didn't see an enemy. I saw someone alone. Someone who needed help. The colony grew quiet. Even Captain Rourke lowered his rifle a little. Sardar turned to the alien leader. If you came because of that, then maybe we should try to trust. Not just you. Not just us. Together. The leader tilted his head, his glowing eyes unreadable. Slowly, he raised his arm. Behind him, the 200 warriors slammed their fists against their chests in unison. The sound rolled like thunder across the plain. Leah translated with a trembling voice. He says, trust begins with a gift returned. We will give you protection for as long as the boy's kindness guides you. Betray that kindness, and we will leave. The humans murmured. Some faces softened. Others hardened. The choice hung heavy in the air. Captain Rourke's jaw clenched. He studied Sardar, then the aliens, then the colony behind him. At last, he lowered his rifle completely. You heard him, Rourke said gruffly. The boy started this. If he says we try, then we try. The weight of the colony's eyes turned again to Sardar. For the first time in his life, he stood taller. Not because he wanted power, but because he wanted peace. He nodded. We try. The alien leader gave the smallest bow of his head. It was enough. The legions shifted their formation, no longer a wall but a circle around the colony, protective, not threatening. The morning sun lit their armor like fire. For the first time, the colony's people looked out at the horizon and felt something stronger than fear. They felt safe. But far beyond the plain, in the dark edges of the galaxy, other eyes had seen the same signal. And not all would come with gifts. The days that followed were unlike any the colony had ever known. The alien legion did not move like an occupying force. They moved like guardians. Every sunrise, they spread out across the plain, their formation wide and unbreakable, their eyes always turned outward. Every sunset, they returned to the edge of the colony, silent, watchful, their armor glowing faintly under the stars. At first, the humans were uneasy. They avoided the warriors, whispered in corners, and warned their children not to stray too close. But the warriors never raised a hand, never drew a weapon. They stood still as statues, patient as the mountains. And slowly, the fear began to bend. Life inside the colony changed too. Trade became safer. The fields outside the wall no longer drew raiders. Even the wild animals seemed to sense the presence of something greater, and they kept their distance. For the first time in years, the people breathed without waiting for the sound of gunfire. And at the center of it all was Sardar. He did not ask for the role, yet everywhere he went, eyes followed. Some looked with gratitude. Others with jealousy. But none ignored him now. Yet the boy himself cared little for the attention. His thoughts were with Leah. She grew stronger each day, though her body still bore the marks of her long journey. Sardar visited her often, sometimes carrying water, sometimes just sitting quietly nearby. At first, he thought she needed his help. But in truth, it was he who needed hers. One evening, as the twin moons rose, they sat outside her tent together. The night was warm, and the air carried the scent of distant rain. Sardar pulled his knees close to his chest, staring at the stars. "You belong to them," he said softly, nodding toward the glowing warriors who stood at the colony's edge. "Why do you sit here with me?" Leah turned her face toward him. Her eyes, silver and bright, reflected the starlight. "Because you gave when you had nothing. Because you saw me, not my armor, not my bloodline. Just me." Sardar's throat tightened. He was used to being invisible, a shadow at the edges of the colony. Now someone looked at him as if he mattered. "I only gave a blanket," he whispered. "You gave more," Leah said gently. "You gave me a reason to live. And now, because of you, my people guard yours." For a long moment, they sat in silence, listening to the steady hum of the alien warriors in the distance. Then Leah's expression grew serious. "But protection will not last forever," she said. "Others have seen the signal. Not all will bow to mercy. Some will come to test it. Some will come to break it." Sardar frowned. "Raiders." Leah shook her head. "Worse. My people are not the only ones who travel the stars. There are clans who feed on weakness. When they see kindness, they do not kneel. They take." The boy felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. The colony had barely survived raiders with crude weapons. What would happen if something greater arrived? Still, he clenched his fists. "Then we'll be ready. You have your legion. We have our walls. And we'll stand together." Leah studied him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You speak like a leader, Sardar." He shook his head quickly. "I'm just a boy." "Perhaps," she said, leaning closer. "But sometimes it takes a boy to remind grown men what matters." Her words stayed with him long after the night faded. The next day, Captain Rourke found Sardar sitting near the edge of the colony, watching the warriors drill in silence. The captain squatted beside him, his gruff face unreadable. "You've stirred up something bigger than you know," Rourke said quietly. "The people look at you different now. Some want you to lead. Some want you gone. Me." He scratched his beard. "I just want you ready." "Ready for what?" Sardar asked. "For when the real test comes," Rourke replied. "Because it will." He left the boy with those words, and Sardar's chest grew heavy. That night, Leah woke from her sleep with a start. She gasped for air, her eyes wide. Sardar, who had been nearby, rushed to her side. "What is it?" he whispered. Her voice trembled. "I felt it. Out there. Moving toward us. A shadow greater than any legion." Sardar froze. His heart pounded. He didn't understand her gift, but he believed her. The blanket had brought light. But now, the light had called the darkness too. And the true story was only beginning. The days after Leah's warning carried an uneasy calm. The alien legion still guarded the colony with silent discipline. The people still worked the fields, repaired walls, and shared food by the fires. Yet every eye drifted more often to the sky. Every ear strained at night, listening for sounds that did not belong. The memory of her trembling words, "a shadow greater than any legion," hung over everyone like a storm waiting to break. One morning, a farmer stumbled into the colony, his clothes torn, his face streaked with dust and blood. He had run all night from the trading outpost 3 valleys over. "They came from the sky," he gasped, falling to his knees. "Ships. Not like yours. Not like theirs." He pointed shakily at the alien warriors standing guard. "They burned the outpost. Took the strong. Left the rest." Gasps broke from the crowd. Mothers pulled their children close. Men tightened their grips on tools and weapons. Even the bravest faces turned pale. The alien leader stepped forward, his armor catching the morning light. He knelt beside the farmer, touching his forehead gently as if pulling the truth from his memories. His eyes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. He spoke, and Leah translated, her voice heavy. He says, "These are the Vayruk. They are not raiders. They are hunters. They do not take land. They take lives. They do not build. They consume. If they are here, they will come again." The colony erupted in shouts. "Then we must leave." "No, we fight. We can't fight them. They'll tear us apart." Captain Rourke raised his rifle and fired a single shot into the air. The crack silenced the crowd. His voice growled low and firm. "Running is death. Fighting alone is death. But fighting together." He looked at the Legion standing like a wall of steel. "That might give us a chance." The alien leader turned to Sardar. His glowing eyes lingered, as if asking a question without words. Sardar's mouth went dry. He didn't want the responsibility, yet it followed him like a shadow. He nodded slowly. "We fight together." The leader raised his hand. 200 warriors slammed their fists to their chests in perfect unison, the sound rolling like thunder across the plain. The decision was made. Training began the next day. The Legion did not fight with noise or waste. They moved in silence, their formations sharp as blades. They showed the humans how to stand, how to watch, how to breathe before a strike. Children carried water. Women sharpened tools into weapons. Farmers learned to hold a spear beside seasoned soldiers. At first, the colony struggled. Their steps were clumsy, their timing poor. But the Legion had patience older than the stars. They drilled again and again, until even the weakest could march in rhythm. Sardar trained too. At first, he was small and slow, stumbling with the weight of a spear. But one warrior tall, scarred, with eyes like dark glass took him under his care. The alien moved without words, correcting Sardar's stance with a tap of his foot, guiding his aim with a firm hand. Soon, the boy's body learned what his mind could not. His arms grew steady. His steps grew sharp. At night, exhaustion weighed on the colony, but fear did not. Training had replaced fear with purpose. Still, Leah's warning echoed. One evening, she stood with Sardar on the watchtower, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was painted with red clouds as the sun sank low. "They're close," she whispered. "I can feel them." Sardar followed her gaze. For a long time, he saw nothing but the plain stretching endlessly. Then faint, at the very edge of sight he saw it. A flicker. A black shape against the burning sky. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. But it was enough. His stomach tightened. "They're coming," Sardar said. "Yes," Leah answered. Her hand brushed against his, steadying him. "But so are we." That night, the alien leader gathered the colony and the Legion in a wide circle. The stars burned overhead, cold and endless. His voice carried deep and strong, Leah translating beside him. "The Vayruk are near. They will not ask. They will not speak. They will only take. But we stand here, together. Your fear has called us. Your kindness has bound us. If we fall as one. But if we stand," he paused, raising his fist. "Then even the hunters will know mercy's strength." The Legion slammed their fists to their chests again, the ground trembling beneath them. This time, the humans joined in, their voices rising with shouts. For the first time, the colony did not feel small. But far away, across the dark sky, the Vayruk ships moved closer, shadows with fire in their bellies, hungry for conquest. The storm was almost here. The colony slept uneasily that night. Fires burned low, sending faint smoke into the sky. The alien legion stood in their silent watch, unmoving at the colony's edge. To the human eye, it seemed nothing could break their wall. But the Varric were not raiders who charged openly. They were hunters. And hunters always tested the edges first. The first sign came just after midnight. A sentry on the west wall heard a faint scratching sound, metal on stone. He squinted into the dark, but saw only shadows dancing between the scrub. His hand tightened on his rifle. He almost called out, but then the sound stopped. After a long moment, he let his shoulders relax. That was his mistake. Minutes later, a section of the outer fence sparked. The wires hissed, shorted, and went dark. The sentry turned in alarm, raising his rifle too late. Something long and clawed slashed across his throat. He fell without a sound. By the time his body hit the ground, the infiltrators were already inside. The Varric moved like shadows, their bodies lean and angular, their armor glistening as if wet. Their faces were hidden beneath insect-like masks, mandibles twitching as they breathed. Each carried a blade curved like a crescent moon. They crawled low to the ground, slipping between patrols, silent as smoke. The alien legion sensed them first. Their formation shifted. Armor plates glowed faintly blue as their lines tightened. But the Varric were clever. They did not strike the warriors. They slipped past them, heading straight for the heart of the colony. In his sleep, Sardar dreamed of fire. He awoke to screams. He bolted upright, heart pounding, as shadows rushed past his window. His first thought was Leah. He ran, feet bare against the cold dirt. He reached her tent just as a Varric lunged inside, its blade raised high. Leah! Sardar shouted, diving forward. His shoulder crashed into the creature's side. The impact knocked the blade off course. The alien hissed, its mask splitting to reveal rows of sharp, wet teeth. Before it could strike again, a towering warrior from the Legion stepped into the tent. His blade met the Varric's throat in one swift motion. The hunter fell, twitching, then stilled. Leah sat up, her face pale, clutching her chest. "They're here," she whispered. Outside, chaos spread. Fires burst in 3 corners of the colony. Screams echoed between walls. Families scrambled for safety while shadows slipped through doors and windows. Captain Rourke barked orders, rallying his men. To the center. Protect the children. His rifle spat fire, cutting down one of the invaders. But for every body that fell, 2 more seemed to appear. The Legion moved with unshakable precision, forming protective walls around clusters of colonists. Their glowing weapons sliced through the dark, their shields catching the curved blades of the Varric. Yet even they were forced back step by step. Sardar pulled Leah to her feet. "We have to go." "No," she said firmly, gripping his arm. "They're not here to burn crops. They're here for me." Sardar froze. "Why you?" "Because I carry the light," she answered. "The signal that called them. If they take me, the rest will follow." Her words chilled him more than the screams outside. But there was no time to question. The flap of the tent burst open. 3 Varric hunters slipped inside, their eyes burning red behind their masks. Sardar stumbled back, weaponless. His chest hammered like a drum. Then the scarred warrior who had trained him earlier stepped between them. He swung his blade in a blur, meeting the first attacker head-on. Sparks flew as steel struck steel. The second lunged low, only for Sardar to grab a broken spear from the floor and thrust with all his strength. The point caught the creature in the side. It shrieked, collapsing in a pool of dark liquid. The boy's arms trembled, but he held the spear tight. He was not invisible anymore. The remaining Varric hissed and darted back into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as it came. When the chaos finally slowed, the fires were being smothered. The colonists huddled together, shaken but alive. Dozens of Varric lay dead across the dirt, their black armor glistening under the moonlight. But the victory was hollow. Everyone could feel it. This had only been a taste. Captain Rourke looked at Sardar, his face grim. "They weren't here to win," he said. "They were here to measure us." Leah's silver eyes narrowed. "And now they know." Above them, far beyond the clouds, more shadows stirred, ships larger than mountains, waiting for the signal to descend. The true hunt had just begun. The night after the attack was heavy with silence. Fires smoldered, smoke drifted through the air, and families huddled close together. Though the infiltrators were gone, their presence lingered like a stain. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind made people flinch. The alien legion had lost warriors. Their bodies were carried out to the plain, their armor still glowing faintly. The survivors stood in silence as the fallen were honored with a ritual unlike anything the humans had seen. A low hum filled the air, rising and falling like a song made of sorrow and strength. The sound seeped into every heart, reminding them that even giants could bleed. Sardar stood among the colonists, his small hands clenched. He had seen death before, but this was different. These warriors had come to protect his people, and now they were gone because of it. His chest burned with guilt. Captain Rourke approached, his face lined with fatigue. "You did well, boy," he said, his voice rough. "You kept her alive." Sardar shook his head. "I wasn't fast enough. More will come. Stronger ones. What if next time I fail?" Rourke crouched, looking him in the eye. "Every man fails sometime. What matters is standing up again. And you," he poked a calloused finger against the boy's chest, "you've got the whole colony watching. Whether you like it or not, you're their hope now." Sardar swallowed hard. Hope. The word felt too heavy for him. Later that day, the alien leader called a council. Humans and warriors gathered in the wide square, the air thick with tension. Leah stood beside the leader, translating every word. "The Varric fleet moves closer," she said, her voice steady despite her pale face. "The hunters sent only a small pack. Next will come their ships, vast as mountains, filled with soldiers who do not rest." The crowd murmured in fear. The leader continued, his tone firm. Leah translated, "We cannot run. If you scatter, they will chase you. If you hide, they will burn your shelter. To live, you must stand. And to stand, you must unite." Captain Rourke crossed his arms. "We're farmers and traders. We're not soldiers. Even with your warriors, we'll be overrun." The leader's glowing eyes shifted to Sardar. His hand lifted slightly, pointing toward the boy. Leah's lips parted, then she spoke. "He says, the boy carries the heart of mercy. It is stronger than any weapon. Let him guide you. Let him speak." The colony froze. Dozens of eyes turned toward Sardar. His throat tightened. He wanted to run, to disappear back into the shadows where no one could see him. But then he felt a small, steady hand slip into his. "Leah's. You gave me life," she whispered. "Now give them courage." Sardar took a shaky breath and stepped forward. His voice cracked at first, but grew steadier with every word. "I was no one," he began. "Just a boy with nothing. But when I gave what little I had, I found something greater. Not because I am strong. Not because I am wise. But because kindness brought us together. That's why they fear us. Not for our weapons. Not for our walls. For this." He pressed a hand against his chest. "For the light we carry." The square was silent. Faces that had been tight with fear softened. Children leaned closer to their parents. Even Captain Rourke's eyes flickered with something like respect. Leah translated his words for the Legion. The warriors struck their chests as one, their voices rising in a deep chant that shook the air. The sound spread through the crowd, pulling cries and shouts of courage from human throats as well. For the first time, the colony and the Legion felt like one people. Plans followed. The Legion taught humans how to build barricades not of wood, but of layered stone and metal. They dug trenches, laid traps, and forged new weapons from scrap. Farmers became defenders. Children carried water and messages. Even the elders found purpose, weaving cloth for banners that would fly high over the walls. Sardar trained harder than ever. The scarred warrior drilled him day and night, until his arms ached and his body trembled. Yet with every fall, he rose again. With every mistake, he grew sharper. He was not the strongest, nor the fastest, but he did not give up. Leah walked among the people, healing with her presence as much as with her hands. Her voice soothed the fearful, her silver eyes steady as she promised they were not alone. And always, Sardar was near her, their bond growing like a flame that refused to die. Still, at night, Sardar looked to the stars. And there, like dark scars across the sky, he saw them shapes moving slowly, blocking out the starlight. The Varik fleet was almost here. And when it arrived, mercy alone would not be enough. The sky split open at dawn. Shadows fell across the colony as the Varik fleet descended, ships vast as mountains, their hulls gleaming like black ice. The ground trembled as their engines roared, and every heart within the colony beat faster. This was it. The day they had been preparing for. Sardar stood on the wall beside Leah, his blanket once ragged, now mended with alien thread draped across his shoulders like a banner. To him, it was no longer just cloth. It was a promise. The alien leader raised his sword to the sky, its edges glowing. Behind him, 200 warriors pounded their shields in rhythm, a thunder that shook the earth. Humans stood among them now, farmers, merchants, and even children clutching stones, united in one cause. The first wave of Varik ships opened fire. Beams of red light streaked across the sky, striking the barricades. Stone shattered, dirt sprayed into the air, but the walls held. Trenches erupted with fire as traps were sprung, consuming squads of Varik soldiers. Sardar gripped his spear. "For mercy," he whispered. "For mercy," Leah echoed, her hand brushing his. Then the ground battle began. The Varik soldiers poured out like a tide, tall, armored beasts with eyes like burning coal. They roared, their voices shaking the air. But they were met with equal fury. The alien legion moved like lightning, their blades cutting arcs of blue fire. Humans fought beside them, clumsy but determined, throwing themselves into the fray with desperate courage. Sardar darted between fighters, his small frame slipping past strikes meant to crush him. He speared one enemy, rolled beneath another's swing, and felt the heat of a beam slice past his face. Every breath burned, every heartbeat screamed. Above them, the sky raged with fire. Legion ships clashed with Varik craft, blue and red light colliding in explosions that turned dawn into midday. It was war. Brutal. Endless. And yet, hope refused to die. Hours passed like minutes. The ground was littered with smoke and ash. Both sides had lost many, but the Varik kept coming. For every one that fell, 3 more landed from the ships. Sardar's body ached. His hands were raw, his clothes torn. Yet he fought on, driven not by rage but by something deeper. Every time he stumbled, he remembered the blanket. That single act. That single spark. And then it happened. The Varik commander himself stepped forward. He was massive, towering over all, his armor black as night and his weapon glowing red. His voice boomed like thunder. "Child of Earth," he roared, pointing at Sardar. "You defy us with scraps and mercy. You are nothing. And nothing must end." The battlefield stilled. Every eye turned toward the boy. Sardar's knees shook. His spear felt too heavy. But Leah's voice whispered in his ear. "Stand, Sardar. They follow you. He took a breath. Then he dropped his spear. Gasps filled the air. Even the legion froze. Sardar stepped forward with only the blanket in his hands. He lifted it high, the fabric fluttering in the smoke-filled wind. His voice rang out, trembling but strong. I had nothing, he cried. And with nothing, I gave mercy. You call me weak, but mercy made an army. Mercy made warriors stand with farmers. Mercy made you fear me enough to come with ships and fire. The Varik commander snarled. His weapon hummed. But for the first time, doubt flickered in his burning eyes. Sardar spread the blanket on the ground between them. If mercy is weakness, then why are you afraid of it? Silence swept the battlefield. The Varik soldiers hesitated, their weapons lowering ever so slightly. Even monsters knew truth when they heard it. The commander's grip tightened on his weapon, but then, slowly, he dropped it to the ground. The clang echoed like thunder. One by one, the Varik soldiers followed, letting their arms fall. The tide that had seemed unstoppable broke not with blood, but with surrender. The alien leader of the legion lifted his sword high. His voice boomed, the boy has spoken. Mercy is stronger than war. Cheers erupted. Humans and aliens raised their voices together, the sound rising above the smoke and ruins like a song of victory. Later, when the fires were out and the sky cleared, the colony stood rebuilt. Stronger. United. The Legion swore to protect Earth's people, not as outsiders but as brothers. Sardar sat on the hill with Leah, the blanket still around his shoulders. For once, he didn't feel like a homeless boy. He felt like something greater. A boy who had turned nothing into everything. A boy who had proven that even in the darkest night, mercy could bring the dawn. And that, my friends, is why the galaxy will never forget the boy who traded his only blanket. Not because he fought with strength, but because he fought with mercy. If you believe humanity's greatest weapon is kindness, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more tales of HFY courage.